I'm certainly not one to complain about mixing up the old point and click formula, but there's always the odd game that makes me wonder, does this count? Can I reasonably still call this a point and click adventure? Incidentally, that's why you're not going to see a review of The Walking Dead or Wolf Among Us games on here, not as point and quickies anyway. The game in question is Tokyo Dark. It's yet another Kickstarted game I didn't back, and the other genre on the table is visual novel. One could argue that the conversation systems in something like Gabriel Knight's Sins of the Fathers aren't a million miles away from that style, but if you stack Tokyo Dark's conversations against something like Asagao Academy, I mean, they're clearly cut from the same cloth. I should really sit down and hammer out a list of rules for what is and what is not a point-and-click adventure at some point, but today I'm going with puzzles, conversations, pointing and clicking, which technically means I should jettison my Space Quest 1 review, but shut up. Well, before I get into all that design malarkey, I'd better tell you the story. We start with a short FMV sequence which puts us on the creepiest train ever, complete with an image of a mask popping up on screen and some red-haired girls simultaneously looking through 4 windows. Then a phone call wakes the protagonist from the dream to find herself on a comparatively less spoopy train, although that depends on how often you've travelled with ScotRail. The protagonist is Detective Ito, her caller is her boss, and the reason for the calling boss is, ironically, a ringing phone. The phone of Ito's partner, who went missing days before. Ito goes off to find the phone and let's just say she encounters someone she recognises. Someone she should, under no circumstances, have been able to see again. Remember that spoopy intro with the Train of Doom? Yeah, there's a theme running through this one. You'd be right in thinking this will veer more towards Japanese horror than Western horror, given the anime art style, the Japanese setting, and the development studio literally being in Japan, so leaning more towards the psychological type of horror than the mask and machete kind. But I reckon this is made with a Western audience in mind, if nothing else because the Kickstarter goal was in Canadian dollars. Speaking of Kickstarter actually, they not only credit their backers in-game, but they let you browse them by letter instead of just throw up a giant list, meaning you have to go and look up a YouTube video of the credits because you missed your name the first time. Even Broken Age thought of that one, it let you scroll back and forth through the... Sorry, back to Tokyo Dark. The psychological nature of the horror also ties into one of the elements which sets this game apart from your standard pointy-click. The S.P.I.N system, which de-acronymizes to sanity, professionalism, investigation and neurosis. For examples, finding a mutilated corpse may reduce your sanity, drinking on the job may reduce your professionalism, thorough questioning of the characters you meet may increase your investigation, and talking to a cat may reduce your neurosis. Although I'm pretty sure that's the other way around, or maybe one's a symptom of the other. Anyway, it's a system which should in theory increase replay value. Encounters may play out different ways depending on your actions, and a particular stat at a particular level may give you options you wouldn't otherwise have. I'm saying may a lot here because this is what the developers promised, and from my time with the game it certainly seems like they delivered, but I'd have to do a lot more research to confirm that. As part of the multiple paths, many of the puzzles also have multiple solutions, which I'm always happy to see. I only say always because I haven't seen a game screw it up yet, give me time. Usually it'll come down to a professional approach and a completely not professional approach to a situation, but better there than not. This does mean that the puzzles involve picking an approach rather than figuring things out, much more of a visual novel thing than a point and click thing. Then again, a lot of story-based games do much the same and I haven't complained, but nonetheless I feel you should know it before you fork over your money. That and the game took me around 4 hours to complete. I figured that's about right given the £15 price tag when you combine the replay value in, otherwise it might be a tiny bit on the steep side. Another unique feature they bring to the point-and-click genre is a New Game Plus mode. Don't believe I've seen that on here before. It gives you save slots. Okay, there's a bit more to it than that. According to the Steam description, these save slots are the forks for the game's 11 different endings, the decision points that will set you on a particular path or paths. Whether it saves before or after the crucial choice is beyond me. Takes some of the mystery out of mapping all the paths, I suppose, although if you're worried about that you can stick to regular New Game instead. Despite the fact they force you to play in what is essentially no saves Iron Man mode first time round, it's a feature I'm more than glad to have, especially with the various timed sections the game throws at you. Thankfully that timer stops once you've picked an option and a conversation ensues. Bear in mind those options could be anywhere on the screen, but you don't have to move your character over to them first. Would probably help if I explained the interface before that part, but oh well, too late now. Detective Ito is controlled by clicking a place to walk or clicking and holding at the side of the screen to run. When she comes into proximity of interactive objects, one of these pops up, varying between 1 and 4 options. Bit fiddly, I'm sad to say. I never got the hang of moving the mouse to the hotspot and nudging it just the right amount to select the option I wanted. And you'll always need to do that, even if there's only one option to be had. Still, I put up with it for about 4 hours without feeling all that frustrated, so it was far from a deal breaker. There's also a map screen. don't get used to it. You'll get a choice of locations at first, but before long the game has you going down a very narrow path. A path determined by past choices, okay, but there's not much point in showing me a map when I'm allowed to go to exactly one location. And I might as well get my last negative out of the way. I find the art style to be oddly inconsistent. They absolutely nailed the look of the visual novel avatars, no complaints there, but then you have in-world characters that don't match up. And there's the main character, who I think is rendered as a 3D model, might be a sprite based on a 3D model, a la Donkey Kong Country or Killer Instinct. Either way, the end result is some very fluid animation which looks great in most environments, and looks like it's from a PS2 game based off an anime property in other environments. Backgrounds are great though. Creepy, urban, yeah, those work. I might sound like I'm being quite down on the game, but it's definitely an experience I enjoyed. Really hard to say how much of that is, yay, I enjoyed this game, and how much is, yay, something different to talk about. For one thing, I really like the idea of choices having consequences beyond picking an ending. My decisions were even questioned by other characters, and coming up with a defense for those actions made me think about what I'd done. It made me wonder how else I could approach situations instead of picking the first option available to me, because that's what adventure game logic tells me to do. That's the advantage to this kind of genre blending. It gets you out of old routines and opens up new possibilities. Even if the game turns out to be bad, it can still have a good idea in there. Hell, I made a whole video about that. Not something that Tokyo Dark has to worry about though. It stayed plenty intriguing enough to get me through to the end and start a second playthrough. So if you're looking for something creepy this Halloween, this might do you. And if you think I deliberately picked a spooky game to review for the end of October, well, you must be new here because I'm terrible at planning.